Hey, hey, hey. Hey, 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 everyone. This is your girl, Troy Ravenel, Life and Marriage Transformation Coach. I am on for Friday Night Live. Yes, doing something a little different here. I normally go live in the Wives Who Win Training Center, which is one of the groups that I'm a founder of. I'm also the co founder of BE Transform Networks. And I just wanted to show you all some love on tonight, this morning, this evening, whatever time it may be that you're watching this. So I wanted to come on and just show you a little bit of love and just to let you know what we've been up to. So you can come into our world a bit of things that we do outside of this group so we can stay connected, stay engaged, and that we can continue to grow, share, and prosper. So tonight, in the month of May, as a matter of fact, I will be talking about how to manage marriage and mental health, how to manage marriage and mental health, which is very, very, very important. If you did not know, this is Mental Health Awareness Month, the entire month of May. And in honor of that, I wanted to talk about this subject matter in particular because I do know that there are so many individuals that struggle with mental health, struggle with having their mental health. And there are so many that struggle with mental disorders that are married. And in particular, I'm talking to the wives on tonight. So if you're on here, hey, hey, Lee, how are you? If you know someone that needs to be on this live video, please go ahead and share, tag, share, and invite, tag, share, and invite. And again, every Friday at 8 p.m., I go live in the Wives Who Win Training Center. And I invite you, if you are a wife or desire to be a wife, I definitely invite you to come over into that group. If not, here is fine as well. I cannot guarantee that I'll always go live from this group. Hey, Instagram. I'm on Instagram as well. So if you see me guys look over to the right, that's why I'm looking over because Instagram is on my video, my phone. So it's so amazing that you get to live in multiple places at the same time. Technology can be so amazing if you utilize it correctly. So what I'm going to do first, I do want to pray before I get started. This is a hefty topic. So I do want to pray before I get started, and then I'm going to get into the lesson. It's going to be juicy tonight. It's going to be revealing on tonight. You may learn some things about yourself that you may not have known or been aware of before this conversation tonight, and it's all good. I just want to let you know this is a safe place. This is a place of healing. It's a place of awareness. It's a place of safety. So I want each and every one of you that are on here to definitely feel safe on tonight. If there's anything that you want to share, you can share that. If not, that's all good as well. I want you to get the information and then be able to apply what you learn on tonight. So let's go ahead and pray. Father in heaven, Lord, we just thank you for tonight. We thank you for your love. We thank you for your kindness. Lord, despite what's going on with COVID-19, we give you the glory. We know that you are God of God, Lord of Lord, King of Kings. We know that you love us. We know that you have our best interests at heart. And God, as we get into the conversation tonight and talking about mental health, I pray, God, that you decrease me and that you increase. I pray, oh God, that the revelation that you place within me, that it flows through me and out of me seamlessly, effortlessly, to be able to help some woman, some man that may be watching this on tonight. I pray for self-discovery. I pray for self-exploration. I pray, oh God, that we look within in order to experience external healing in our lives. So God, I thank you as you take the wheel on tonight and that you be the glory. You will receive all the glory, the honor in Jesus' name. Amen. Praise God. I want to share some statistics with you because as I was looking up some things on mental health to share with you all today, I came upon something regarding divorces, and there's a lot of issue when it comes to divorces, and we've heard for a long time that divorces are at 50%, it's a 50% increase and things of that nature. Well, I am here to tell you that the divorce rate has gone down. However, there is still a 39% divorce rate. And what experts and researchers are coming up with right now, they're saying that after COVID-19, that the divorce rate is going to rise. They're saying that because this is a crisis that we're in, it's a traumatic event for a lot of people, that many people are going to experience some level of divorce. And I want to talk from the perspective of mental health more so, and why mental health is very important, especially during this time. So if you're on here on tonight, let me know where you're chiming in from. Let me know who you are, because I'd love to give you a shout out if I can see your name and tell who you are on tonight. So the fact remains, I don't know if you all know, but mental health, mental illness, especially in the African American community, is a stigma. Many of us grew up in homes where we didn't talk about mental health, where it was shied away from, where it was ignored, where it was misunderstood. So if you did have some type of challenge with mental health, or if someone thought you to be ill mentally, it was something that, they looked at negatively, and you were shunned more or less for having that issue or that illness. But I'm here to tell you that mental illness and mental disorders are more prominent than you would think. They're more, it's not popular because it's not a positive thing, but it happens more often than not. And many people don't know the underlying issues or reasons for it. Some are inherited, some are developed, some people are born with them, and some things just transpire over time and you experience that mental health. So, how does that work when you're in a marriage relationship? How does that then affect your marriage per se? So, we want to talk a little bit about that on tonight. And I want to be able to give you some things that you can utilize and take away to be able to use in your marriage. Let me read the statistics, and it says that African Americans are 10% more likely to experience serious psychological distress than any other community. So that's other than whites, Latinas, and things of that nature. And just so you know, mental health does not discriminate, and mental disorders do not discriminate. Anybody of any race, color, creed, gender can experience it. And some people don't know that they have a mental illness until later on. Some people are in their 20s or even their 30s. They're at that time when they experience that there's some level of mental illness and some level of mental health, mental disorder that they're experiencing. And why is that? Is it the mere fact that people are ignoring? They just don't know. They don't. They don't admit to it. They don't identify it. Why is that it would take that long for someone to experience any type of mental illness or any type of mental disorder that they experience? I do want to say something about PTSD, because I believe this for a long time, and I associated PTSD with military personnel, because many of us, that's what we were taught. If you're in the military, you go to war and things of that nature, you will experience some level of PTSD. But I am here to tell you that there are acute or even lasting traumatic events that you can experience in your life, whereas you can be diagnosed with some level of PTSD or some type of post-traumatic stress. It doesn't necessarily have to be a disorder, but it can be some level of PTSD or PTS, post-traumatic stress, that you experience as a result of that. That can come from a car accident, that can come from any level of abuse or any level of trauma, which abuse is a type of trauma that you can experience in your life. So how can you then develop a healthy marital relationship when you're struggling with mental health? So let's talk about that for a little bit. So if you are, or your spouse, I'll say that if you or your spouse are dealing with a mental illness, and you have been diagnosed with mental illness, here are some things that I do want to share with you. And first and foremost, is not something that should be taken lightly, and is not something that you will always understand. But the best thing that you can do for yourself, or if it's your spouse, is try to understand what they're going through. Try to understand and be empathetic to their situation, although it may be foreign to you. Although this is not something that you can relate to personally, you can definitely try to understand what they're going through and to understand the severity of their illness or of their disease. That's number one. And that's a simple conversation. Now, just depending on what they're experiencing, the conversation may need a mediator. So you may need someone to come in and help. That can be a counselor, a therapist, or someone that's experienced in that area to be able to be the mediator and to talk through what's going on with your spouse. Because the worst thing you can do is to judge them and make them feel like there's something wrong with them, or make them feel like they're weird or they're crazy, or to even call them crazy. That's not something that you want to do in a marriage relationship, because marriage is about co-partnering with someone. It's about supporting, encouraging, and being there with your partner, with your spouse, in that capacity, for the good, bad, or the ugly. Now, you may be in a place and you may say, well, I didn't know that they had a mental disorder when we got married. This wasn't an issue, but I did realize there were some things that were wrong. However, I didn't quite understand what the issue was. And now I'm seeing 5 years, 10 years, even 20 years down the line, that there is definitely an issue. Still, what I would say with that is to understand what they're going through. And the best way you can do that is to educate yourself. Educate yourself on the disease, on the pros and the cons, per se. Well, I wouldn't say necessarily pros, but the cons of the disease. How can it help? How can it hinder the marriage relationship? How can it hinder the communication level that you and your spouse are having together? Knowing the symptoms of the mental illness, and understanding those symptoms, and not judging your partner for having those symptoms. So it's easy to think that your spouse is being a certain way. Oh, he or she is lazy or distant or distracted or irritable, but there may be a reason as to why. If this behavior is happening consistently and constantly, there is a reason why they're showing up this way. And it is in your best interest is to be informed, and to be educated as to what is going on. Now, if they have not been diagnosed, or you have not been diagnosed, but you definitely know that there is a problem bigger than normal problems or issues that marriage relationships go through, I would encourage you to encourage that individual to seek some type of help. If you're not the person for that, and they don't listen to you, or they don't value your advice, then you may need to bring in a mediator, maybe one of their family members or somebody, to come in to be able to support and to help you to encourage or influence this individual to get help. But I would pray that you are the person that would be able to identify some areas of concern and be able to get the help you need. Another area, so number two, what you want to do is to show support and sympathy. Show support and sympathy. Anyone being diagnosed or even thinking that they have a mental illness or disorder, that can be devastating. This can be embarrassing. It can be frightening. Again, in the African American community, we know that there's a stigma. We know that, if you have a mental illness or disorder, you're automatically associated with being crazy or weird, or something is wrong with you. That's how it's viewed, which is negative, and no one wants to be connected or viewed in a negative sense. So the best thing you can do is try to show them some support. Although you're not certain of what's going on, they may not even be certain, but show some level of support. It's important to let your spouse know that you are there for them, that you love them, in sickness and in health. Isn't that one of the vows that many of us spoke on that day that we got married? I'll be there for you, with you, in sickness and in health, to death do us apart, good, bad, ugly. This is a part of the ugly, or the bad, maybe, right? It doesn't have to be, but the mindset, that's what it tells us. This is the ugly part of my marriage. This is the bad part, but it doesn't have to be. When you are working together, you are supporting one another, showing that support and sympathy, and you're showing up for that person, even in their worst time. There are a number of things that they can do, they can take advantage of, therapeutic means. There are also medication, if that is a need for the type of illness or disorder they have. But there are a number of ways that that individual or yourself can cope with the mental illness or disorder, and it does not have to negatively impact the marriage. What I can tell you is, if you or your spouse do not get the help and the support they need by way of medication or professional help, then that mental illness or disorder will impact the marriage, and that marriage can result in dissolution. It is a proven fact. There are statistics out there, research has been done to say that if you have a mental disorder, even if it's undiagnosed, a diagnosed or undiagnosed or underdiagnosed mental disorder or illness, it will impact the marriage relationship, and that marriage has a greater chance or greater risk of being of dissolving. So we want to definitely make sure that that's not the case, because I don't believe that anybody gets married to get divorced. Anybody gets married, their idea about the marriage is to be married long term, indefinitely. So even if this is one of the challenges in the marriage, you can utilize it to help strengthen the marriage, because if the communication lines are strengthened, the emotional connection is strengthened, the support level is strengthened, that in itself can strengthen the marriage. Okay, so educate yourself and show support. The number 3 thing I want to share is, you're not their therapist, and don't enable them. So don't try to you're educating yourself to understand. You're not educating yourself to be their therapist. That's two different things. Even if you are a licensed therapist or a counselor or a coach, is not, as a spouse, you're the encourager, you're the supporter. You're not the person giving them the professional advice or opinions, unless they ask. They may ask, but they may not. And if they don't, you don't have permission to do so. And it says that this is inappropriate. Even if you are a trained mental health professional, you should keep your lane should be the spouse, the wife, or the husband, and you should stay in that lane and allow them to get the professional help outside of the marriage, so that they can work with those counselors and those professionals. Because it would be very hard for you to try to be their doctor and be their wife, or be their counselor and be their husband. That would be very challenging, because it will be hard for you to be able to separate the two. That's the same thing in medicine. In medicine, you can't, if you are a medical doctor, you cannot operate on your family member. And there is a reason for that, because there is so many things that can go wrong. Your feelings are in it, your bias. So there's so many things that can go wrong with that. And it's best for you to maintain your distance in that area and stay in your lane. Furthermore, those with mental illnesses are still responsible for taking the steps to manage their own illness, so that they can be healthy and lead productive lives as their partners or spouses, and in some areas of life. So they're responsible for doing that themselves. You, again, are just a supporter and encourager. And be mindful of becoming their crutch or their enabler. They must take some responsibility, or if that's you, you must take some responsibility and be responsible for your own treatment plan that's provided by your counselor or therapist. Okay. The number 4 tip or area is seek individual counseling or couple counseling, because this can impact the marriage. Again, I already said that those with mental illnesses or disorders, If they refuse to manage those areas, then it will impact the marriage, and your marriage does have a greater chance of divorce, separation, and or divorce. So the purpose for individual and or couple counseling is to make sure that you keep the main thing is to make sure that you gain perspective, guidance, and you have some type of balance in this situation so things do not get out of hand. You need some mediators, you need or a mediator, you need some type of common ground. So there's some things that you must do in order to make sure that the marriage relationship as a whole is not affected or impacted. So as the spouse of someone who does have a mental illness or a condition, it is not unusual to experience, fear, anxiety, because you don't know what to expect. And depending on the mental illness or disorder, you don't know what to expect. You don't know how they're going to respond. You don't know how they're going to react sometimes. So you need to make sure that you're solid and make sure that you feel safe and that you understand and that you're not emotionally overwhelmed, emotionally exhausted, emotionally hijacked. So just make sure that you are managing your level of emotion, you're managing your mental well-being as well, and also you're managing your physical state. So you have to, as a couple, it's healthy to learn and establish boundaries in that relationship when it comes to managing the marriage and managing the mental health. Okay. And the last thing I'm going to share with you is practice self care. So, you being the spouse that is married to someone that has the mental illness or disorder, be it diagnosed or undiagnosed, it is very important for you to practice self care. And I want to say this: self care is not being selfish. Self care is not being selfish. In fact, self care means that you are practicing self love. When you're loving on yourself, you're caring for yourself. That means that you are practicing that self love, self kindness, self compassion, which are all very important, especially if you are in a marriage with someone that have been diagnosed with a mental illness. If you don't focus on your own health, you are at risk of being sucked into their world of mental illness, and then also that would put the marriage at risk. So if you both are engulfed and involved with the mental illness, and that becomes the topic of the house, if that becomes the main thing, if that becomes the center of attention, if you would, then that takes the attention and the focus off of the marriage and the marriage growing and sustaining, and you're both engulfed with that, and that can be a very dangerous thing. So go back to the basics, and for you that maybe get sleep, do some physical exercise activities, make sure that you are spending time with other family and friends and loved ones, and engage in things that you enjoy doing. One thing I will share with you is to create a happy list. Create a list of things that you enjoy doing. These things can be free or minimum cost or extravagant if that's the place that you're in financially, and create those things and do those things regularly so that you will not become burnt out, so that you, as the caregiver, if you would, because you are caring for this person in a different capacity now that you know that they are struggling, or I wouldn't say struggling, they have been diagnosed with a mental illness. So you being the caregiver, you don't want to get burnt out and feel like this is your life now, and now your life can't be any fun, or you don't your spouse is not who you thought they were. You don't want this to impact the marriage in that capacity, nor does it have to be. So just none does it have to. So just make sure that you're doing everything possible to stay in mental well-being and self-care, so that you don't get drawn into what's going on in their world to the point that it is impacting you as well. I'm going to ask you a question. Are you stepping up in a way that you are proud of, or are you avoiding doing your part to help your spouse and yourself? That's a question that you should ask. You should not try to avoid. You can step in and step up, because avoiding only results in you not dealing with the issue at hand and pretending that everything is okay when it's not. Not that things are wrong, but they're not okay either. And we have to deal with that in order to keep the main thing the main thing. And the main thing is definitely, yes, the mental well being of your spouse or yourself, and also the well being of the marriage as a whole, making sure that the marriage covenant is healthy. So, in order for you to manage your marriage and manage your mental health, you must give time, attention to both of those areas. There must be some level of balance that incorporates into that marriage relationship. You must be supportive and sympathetic. You must educate yourself. That's extremely important. Be caution of trying to become their therapist, counselor, coach, or enabler. Be the spouse, be the supportive, loving spouse that you've been called to be by God. Seek individual and couples counseling, and then practice self-care yourself to make sure that you stay balanced and to make sure that you don't experience any level of burnout or fatigue or throwing in the towel of any sort. So that's what I wanted to share with you all. And like I said earlier, May is the month of mental health. So all of May, we will be sharing about managing marriage and mental health. We'll be sharing different things as it relates to this topic as a whole. I will caution, disclaimer, I am not a mental health counselor. However, I've done a great deal of research, and I'm also a doctoral candidate for marriage and family therapy. So I know a little bit, and I know enough to be able to share this topic. Everything that I share with you is research. It's studies have been done. So this is not something that I'm just coming up with and out of my own mind per se. This is information that I have researched, I've read, and I have a really good grip on what it's about. So I am definitely qualified to share it with you. If you are someone you know or your loved one is experiencing any type of mental illnesses, disorders, underdiagnosed, undiagnosed, or diagnosed, and you need someone to talk to in that field, I do have quite a bit of friends and colleagues that I can refer you to, psychologists, psychiatrists, in them all, in order to support you further in that area. So I hope that this session tonight has blessed you. I pray that you have learned something that you didn't know before getting on here. And I pray that you can take these steps that I shared with you to be able to implement them in your marriage so that you can win in your marriage. Because just because there is a challenge in the marriage, it does not mean that you cannot win. It is one of those unsolvable things, something that will not be solved per se. However, you can learn to manage and to cope with it. And so many people are able to do that effectively. What I can tell you is that it is going to take both of you working together in order to manage and cope in this area so that the marriage relationship will not be negatively impacted. So this is your girl, Terrell Ravenel, life and marriage transformation coach. Every Friday, we are doing Friday Night Live on Facebook, actually Friday Night Live in my Wives Who Win Training Center. So those of you that are on IG, if you are a wife or a wife in training, I invite you to come over to Facebook to the Wives Who Win Training Center. Those on the Be Transform networks, if you are a wife or a wife in training, I invite you to come on over. Every Monday, we pray for marriages and family, wives, husbands, and we do a lot of things in that group. It's all about training. It's all about providing you with the tools and resources you need in order to be the influence in your marriage so that your marriage can experience transformative change. And I don't know about you all, but everybody should want to experience transformative change in their marriage. There is no marriage that is perfect. Because there's no perfect person. So we will always be evolving. We're always going to be learning and growing and just trying to be the best version of who God has called us to be. And that takes work. That takes work. And being the best version when you don't feel like it, when you're overwhelmed, when you're dealing with all types of issues in the midst of COVID, that takes a lot of work. So I am qualified and I would love to be able to teach and share the things that I've learned and continue to learn so that we can grow together. We can evolve together. We can advance together. I believe that being an influencer is so much more than, showing up and being the beautiful wife. That's great. great, and we all should do that. However, there's so much more that you have to offer to your marriage. And if you want to know what that so much more is, I would love to share that with you. So come on over to the Wives Who Win Training Center on Facebook. And you can also visit my website at wiveswhowin.com. I would love to walk this journey with you and be supportive in any way I can. All right, you guys. I'll see you next week. Bye. Bye, IG.